Hi everyone. So, something's happened in my life, and I'm desperately trying to figure out what to do about it. I've been married to my wife for 2 years. We've been together since high school, when I was 17 and she was 16. We've spent our whole adult life together, supporting each other through college, first jobs, family issues, and everything you can think of. She's not only my wife, but my very best friend in the world. We've always gotten along great, could talk about any and everything, barely ever fought, and could always tell when the other needed space or time to themselves. Things have been a bit different the past year. I started to feel some tension at home, coming from my wife, a little bit of annoyance here and there, and she started wanting to spend more time by herself. I accepted this, as we've always spent all of our time together for the past 8 years, and sometimes alone time is just what you need. So I gave her some space, started spending time in the living room if she was in the bedroom, and so on. But slowly, she started to pick little fights with me about things that had never seemed to matter before. She would bring up things that I do that annoy her, like the fact that I snore, or that I don't like to wear socks. All things that she's well aware of, and has been for the past 8 years. I brushed it off, thinking that she might just be going through something at work that's been stressing her out, as she seemed to be doing a lot of overtime. My wife works at a large marketing company. She was recruited right out of college and has been working there since before we got married. She's great at her job, and really passionate about what she does. I figured that maybe she was working on a difficult project at work, and this was causing her annoyance at home. To be honest with you, I should have known that something else was going on, but I chose not to ask her about it, whether subconsciously or not. 2.5 weeks ago, my wife went away on a business trip to a conference in another city. She'd been excited about this trip for weeks, and I was glad to see her so enthusiastic, plus kind of relieved to have the apartment to myself, as the constant tension in the air had been really getting to me. She was gone for a week, and we didn't talk very much over that time, apart from the usual good morning, good night text that we've always done. I could hear from her social media that she was enjoying herself and was hoping that her good mood would continue when she got home. She got home a week and a half ago, and I could tell that something was different with her. She seemed happier, lighter, and less frustrated. I was really glad to see this, as I thought that maybe we'd be able to get back to our fun and carefree relationship. For a few days, everything was great. We were connecting again, laughing, and having real conversations, and I felt that the love had returned. Then, one day last week, while she was in the bathroom, her phone buzzed, and I took a look at it in case it was an emergency. We've always been very open with our phone passwords. As I said, we've been together since we were teenagers, so we never felt the need to hide things from each other. It was a text from my wife's boss saying, "Can't wait to see you this weekend, XXX, with a few suggestive emojis. My heart dropped to my stomach, and I prayed it wasn't true. But I unlocked the phone and saw that their text message thread was full of flirty messages, emojis, and nude photos. One look at her camera roll showed me photos of the two of them kissing and doing other sexual things, and a video showing the whole thing. My eyes filled with tears, and I just sat silently on the couch, waiting for her to come back into the room. When she did, she took one look at me sitting there, crying with her phone in my hand, and she started apologizing and crying immediately. She told me that she'd never meant for it to happen, that she's just been feeling trapped within our relationship for the past few months, and the only person she felt comfortable talking about it with was her boss, who was currently going through a divorce. She told me that one thing led to another after a few too many drinks, and that she'd felt free and uninhibited in a way she'd never felt before. It had apparently only meant to be a one-time thing, but she felt so good about it that she and her boss decided to share a room for the duration of the conference, and chose to make the explicit videos that I'd just seen. My wife begged me to forgive her, saying that now that they were back home, she'd realized that I was the one she wanted, that she'd just been feeling suffocated due to the fact that we'd been together for so long. She told me the fact that she'd never been with another man besides me had been weighing on her mind, and now that she had been with someone else, she realized that I was the only man she ever wanted to be with. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest, and I didn't say much for the rest of the night. Just went up to our room and cried on our bed until I fell asleep. When I woke up, I found a note from my wife, apologizing again, and saying that she'd gone to stay with her sister to give me some space until I made my decision. This was 4 days ago, and my mind is still going around in circles, trying to figure out what I want to do. I love my wife more than anything in the world, and I don't want to lose her, but I feel like the fact that she did this means that I already have. On the other hand, we've been together for almost a decade, and I do sometimes wonder as well what it would be like to be with someone else, but I'd never dream of acting on it. I mostly just feel confused, and I want to talk to my best friend about it, but I can't. If you've gotten this far, thank you for reading, and if you have an opinion on what I should do, please do let me know because I could use an outside perspective. Update. Hi everyone. Before I get into it, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who reached out and sent me their words of encouragement about the situation. Having people who can look at the situation objectively and give their point of view has really helped me, so I really appreciate that. As you'll remember, my wife, who I've been with since we were teenagers, recently cheated on me with her boss while at a work conference. When I found out, she begged me to forgive her, saying that it wouldn't ever happen again and that she'd been worrying about missing out on things by only being with me her whole life. She'd been staying with her sister for the past week, but we met a few times to talk things out in a calm way, to figure out how we were going to move forward. As I said, it's been a week, but she's moving back into the apartment tomorrow. We took some time away from each other initially, but both wanted to give things another go. As I said, we met a few times to discuss things and where we wanted to go from there. There were a lot of tears and a lot of honesty. My wife opened up to me and told me that she'd begun to resent me over the past few months, as she was struggling with the fact that we'd only been with each other, and I seemed to be totally fine with it. As I mentioned in my original post, I have at times thought about the fact that the only romantic or sexual relationship I've ever had has been with her, but it hasn't ever bothered me enough to change anything about how much I love her or want to be with her. Evidently, my wife has been seeing the situation differently, leading to her having the affair. An aspect of the conversations we had was that my wife seems to be interested in the idea of an open marriage, despite wanting to continue our relationship. This threw me, I won't lie, but I took some time to think about it, and if it's what would make her happier within the relationship, I'm willing to try it. We talked through some details regarding this, but agreed that the most important thing to do first was for her to move back in, and for us to try to rebuild our relationship, before adding anyone else to it. So, as I said, she'll be moving back in tomorrow, and we're gonna give it another try. Honestly, the only thing that matters to me is that she's happy. If we try an open relationship, and she doesn't like it, that's fine with me. If she does like it, I'll just have to get used to it. I know this isn't what some of you advise me to do, but at the end of the day, this is my relationship with my wife, and I want to do this. Again, in saying that, I do appreciate the support from everyone. It's really made me feel less alone while going through this whole situation. I can't wait for her to move back in tomorrow and for us to start trying to put things back together. I'm gonna try as hard as I can to make her happy, and I just hope it's gonna be enough. I'll let you all know how it goes. But in the meantime, thanks again for reading. Update 2. Hey guys, it's been about a month since I last posted, and things have gotten a bit more complicated since then. It's been about a month since she moved back in, and things have been a little bit up and down. We decided to make sure to check in with each other every few days to see how we were feeling, and it went well for the first week or so. But as soon as we settled back into our routine, she began bringing up the open marriage topic again. I asked her what exactly it would mean for us, and she explained that we would both be free to date and sleep with other people, and that it would eventually bring us closer together. As you can imagine, I was unsure about this arrangement, but as I've said before, my wife is my very best friend in the entire world, and I would do anything to make her happy, so I agreed to it. Fast forward to now, and my wife has now been on dates with 3 different men, and seems to be having the time of her life. I don't know if she slept with them, as she set one of the rules of the arrangement to be that we don't talk to each other about the people we're seeing. But the problem is that I have no interest in dating or sleeping with anyone but her. So you see my dilemma. My wife is out seeing other men, and I'm at home waiting for her to come back, but not knowing whether she slept with them. It's led to me being quite depressed, to be honest, but it's clearly making my wife much happier, as she's singing around the apartment, laughing and joking again. And when we do have sex, she seems to enjoy it much more than she did before. The problem is that, again, I don't want to be with anyone but her, so it feels an awful lot like cheating to me, but I agreed to it willingly. Where we are now is that my wife is certainly much happier, but I'm quite miserable. My options are to either tell my wife this and accept that she might leave me over it, or try to find a nice girl to go on a date with so that we're back on equal footing. I'm aware that I've gotten myself into this situation, but if anyone has any advice for me on how to move on from here, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for reading. Update 3. Hey everyone, long time no update. So, my wife left me about 2 weeks ago. As you know, we decided to open up our marriage as my wife felt that we were limiting ourselves, as we'd only been with each other since we were teenagers and wanted to try something different. I didn't really want to do this, as I only have eyes for her, but decided to go along with it if it would make her happy. So, for the last month or so, up until about 2 weeks ago, my wife had been going out on dates with various men, and not telling me anything about it, including whether or not she'd slept with them. She also encouraged me to do the same, suggesting some women she thought I should ask out on a date. I was really reluctant at first, but eventually went ahead and asked a girl from a workout on a date. It went okay, but I just spent the whole evening feeling guilty about the fact that I was out with someone who wasn't my wife. I got home and she wasn't even there. She was out on one of her dates. When she got home, she asked how it had gone, and I said that it was fine, but that I'd rather be with her. This continued on for a while, and my mood continued to get worse, as it just felt like I was being cheated on over and over. I didn't go on any more dates, but would sit waiting at home for my wife to be finished with hers. One night, 2 weeks ago, she came home smelling like wine and cologne, and I was sitting in the dark, waiting for her. She immediately blew up at me, telling me how pathetic I looked, waiting for her to get home like a loyal little dog. She said that she had no more respect for me, as she could tell how much I hated the arrangement, but that I would never put up a fight because I wanted to appease her. She spent a while yelling at me about how a real man would tell her that he doesn't want anyone but her, and that she'd just have to deal with it or leave. That a real man wouldn't let other men date and sleep with his wife just because he was afraid of losing her. She then told me that she'd had enough of this, that she was sick of seeing my sad and hopeless face looking at her every time she came home from spending time with a man she liked more than me. I asked her what she wanted to do next, and she screamed that this was the problem, that I never took charge of the relationship, and that she was tired of being the man between us. She then told me that she was done with me, with the marriage, with the apartment we shared, and that she was leaving me for her boss. Apparently, it hadn't been a one-time thing, and she'd been continuing to see him over the past few weeks and had developed real feelings for him. She then told me that he demanded she stop seeing other men and only date him. This was what she'd wanted the whole time apparently, for a man to take charge. She then left the apartment, and I was alone. I haven't heard from her since then, not directly anyways. She's had her sister reach out to me, to arrange a time to pick up her things, but she hasn't replied to any of my calls or texts asking to talk. It seems like she's just done with me. Just like that. 8 years of love. Or what I thought was love. All gone. Just like that. I haven't been back to work since then. I've basically just been sitting at home, thinking about all of the things I should have done differently. If I'd just been a bit more confident and masculine, maybe I'd still have my wife. I don't really know what to do without her. To be honest, she's been my best friend and my partner throughout everything for the past 8 years. Now she's off with her boss, her strong, commanding boss, who apparently is more of a man than I've ever been. I'll leave it here, as I don't have much more to say, but I'm gonna take some time away from here, as I already have an idea of what some of the responses to this will be, and I'm really not in the headspace to deal with it. I do want to say again, thank you to my friends in this group, who've been a real shoulder to cry on these past few weeks. I appreciate you more than you know. I'll be back at some point, but until then, thanks for reading. Update 4. It's been about 6 weeks of single life for me, and to be honest, I'm feeling better by the day. I still haven't spoken to my wife since the night she drunkenly trashed my entire character and left our apartment for the last time. She really took a clean break to a new level, choosing to communicate only through her sister, and only to arrange a time to pick up her belongings from the home we shared for 5 years. But as I said, I'm doing better every day. I went back to work a few weeks ago and started making friends with some of the people I work with, realizing that I'd been investing the majority of my energy in my wife for the past few years, leaving no room for new connections. I realized that I work with some really cool people, and that I myself am actually a much cooler person than I thought I was for the past few years. I started going out for drinks with some friends from work, and on one of these nights, I was given an amazing idea that would help me feel better about the whole situation with my wife, and get some revenge. Now, I'm aware that this doesn't reflect very well on me, but I did manage to get both my cheating wife and her boss fired from their jobs. I know, I'm messing with their livelihoods. But I do believe that this revenge was justified. It was actually quite simple. All I really had to do to make my wife lose her job was to circulate some of the information she told me in confidence about her job over the years. Much of it, which was under a non-disclosure agreement. I won't go into the details here, but some of the information that my wife has told me over the years is very sensitive and would have a big impact on the company's profits if shared with the public. So, that's exactly what I did. About 2 weeks ago, I leaked some information on the company's practices to a business publication, information that only my wife would have been aware of. The news spread, and my wife was quickly let go from the company, with no severance package as she'd violated her NDA. Easy. To get her boss fired, I had to do some more complicated planning. I hadn't spent much time with the guy, so he wouldn't have had the opportunity to spill any company secrets, but I did know that while he'd been having an affair with my wife, he'd been in the middle of quite a nasty divorce. After asking around in my social circles, I was able to quite quickly find out that he'd been sued for sexual harassment by a former employee, and had used company funds to settle outside of court, so as to not make a public spectacle. Again, a few words with a friend at a business magazine, and the news was out there, giving the company no choice but to let him go, or else face public scrutiny and ruin their own reputation. So, there you go. I've gotten my revenge on the 2 people who ruined my life. To be honest, I'm not even that angry with the boss, seeing as I didn't know him very well to begin with, but the fact that my wife chose to insult my masculinity while praising him as some alpha male pushed me over the edge. What kind of an alpha male is he gonna be now, with no job and no way to pay his divorce costs? Last I heard, he and my wife were working in customer service, trying to scrape up some cash to pay the rent on the giant penthouse she'd moved into. Now, I'm well aware that this update doesn't reflect very well on me at all. I know that I'm coming across as the lover scorned, but that's because I am. I gave my wife absolutely everything I had for the past 8 years, my entire adult life, and this was how she repaid me? I did everything I possibly could to make her happy for almost a decade, and she threw it all back in my face. I couldn't just sit back and accept that. It was a matter of pride, and I've got mine back now. I don't have much more to add to this, except for the fact that I won't be accepting any criticisms from anyone about what I've done. None of you were part of this relationship, know either one of us in real life, or were there the night that she left me. None of you are in this situation, so you cannot say what you would have done differently. I've made my choices, and I stand by them. To all my friends, thank you for standing by me all this time, and for all the constant support. You've been my rock, and I absolutely couldn't have gotten through this without you. I'll leave this here now, and I'm not sure if I'll have anything else to add to this in the future. Balance has been restored, and I'm moving on with my life. Update 5. I'd almost forgotten all about this thread. Many of you have been sending me messages asking for an update on how things are going with me, whether my now ex-wife ever figured out that I was the one who got her fired, or if she's still with her boss. So here I am to give you all the long-awaited updates on my very dramatic life. I still haven't spoken to my wife since she left me that night, months ago, but instead of it being her ignoring my messages, it's now the other way around. She's called and texted a few times over the past few months, asking if it was me who leaked the information that got her fired. I have no doubt that she knows it was me, but she has no proof, so there isn't anything she can actually do about it without a confession from me. The only communication we've had has been through our lawyers, as I filed for divorce around the same time that I put my revenge plan into motion. She signed the papers a few weeks ago, and so we're now officially no longer married. Good riddance. I heard that she and the boss are engaged now, though they had to move out of the fancy penthouse and into a 2-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. I didn't expect their relationship to last this long, to be honest with you. I guess her whole thing of not wanting to be stuck in a relationship only applied to me? I've since moved out of our hometown, to another state, as I felt I needed some space from the whole situation. I'd spent my whole life in that town, and my entire adult life in that relationship, so it felt like it was time to move on. I've since found a job I really like, and started dating a really nice girl. I haven't told her about how my marriage ended, or that she's the only second woman I've ever been with, but I suppose that'll come with time. The main thing is that I really like her, and it's going really well. Apart from all of that, I don't really have very much to say. I doubt I'll be writing any more updates, as I don't really feel the need to keep up with my ex's life. As far as I'm concerned, I got my revenge. Now, she's dead to me. She can do whatever she wants with her life. I do think her and her boss deserve each other, so maybe this all worked out the way it was supposed to. Before I go, I just want to say that the responses I've gotten from this thread have been insane. On the one hand, I've met some really amazing people, who I now even call my friends. But on the other, I've been called some really horrendous names by people who I've never met a day in my life. My message for them is this: you never know the real facts of a situation by reading a post on the internet, so you should keep your opinions to yourself. Thanks for reading.